What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Full Throttle Auto. My name is Harris, and today we're back with another Honda Accord mod video. Somebody's trimming and cutting the grass while I decided to do this. All right, well, it is what it is. So if you remember in the last video, I said this: have a mod that is coming on June. Right now it's on back order. I already ordered it, but it is on back order until about June, I want to say 20th. I'm not 100% certain. Now it turns out I'm a liar. It got here way earlier than June. It was supposed to be here like June 20th or 24th. Clearly it's not June, it's May. I don't know why it showed up early. I didn't get a notification it was showing up early, but it did, and I'm happy. It's okay. It's all right. I did also in that video say, can you guess what brand I'm going with? And unfortunately, nobody commented on that video. That's embarrassing. But as embarrassing that is, I'm still super excited about this video and about the installation we're doing today on the exhaust. Now, as the title says, it is an exhaust install video. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and hear how this car sounds right now in its current state, which it does have an intake, so that's gonna boost up the sound. And then we're gonna go over the tools we might need, which is what I've been already saying in all the videos, but it's okay. And then we're gonna get into the installation. So let's get to it. Our basic tool set, as always, shaky hands. Basic tool set, as always, Craftsman socket set that I got a long time ago. It's got all the sockets I could possibly need. I do have additional extensions here, or breaker bars, or whatever you want to call them. A very long ratchet, and then this is more like a breaker bar here. We are most likely going to need to use this. I don't see a lot of rust on the bolts, but a lot of times, even if you don't, it's still a pain to get them off. So we most likely will need that. And just in case, I have this particular brand here. It's Aerocoil. I don't know. Basically, it does what PB Blaster does, or any other brand of that, is breaks bolts apart by helping with the rust or anything that might be seizing them together. So just in case, I do have that. And of course, if I have to get really bad with it, I do have a air tank with air tools, just in case if I do have to, for some weird reason, get that far. All right, now before we get any further, I do want to talk about the exhaust. So for the exhaust, since nobody commented down below, at least as of making this video, nobody commented down below, I did go with the Tsudo. Tsudo. I don't know. I'm not the king of pronunciation. It's right here. It's right here. That's the brand. And the reason I went with them is because they are the only ones that had a full cat to the all the way to the tips 2.5-inch piping. All other brands went from like 2.5 to 2.25, 2.25 to 2 inches. And why do I care for 2.5 all the way back? Future-proofing, basically. There is one turbo kit for these cars, and if it's at some point I decide to go turbo with this 4-cylinder, I want to make sure that I have at least a 2.5-inch exhaust all the way from the cat back. So that way the front of the car, from the turbo down to the cat, or to this part of the exhaust, can be 3 inches, and this is 2.5. So it's kind of future-proofing, and yeah, that's why I went with it. Let's take a look at the exhaust laid down flat for us. So here's the exhaust laid out, and I took a look at all the welds and make sure the piping doesn't have any kind of dents in it. And from what it looks like, everything seems to be good. Now, the tips. They are 4-inch tips, so they do look fairly big. but I think it's gonna fill up that hole fairly decently. Now there is one more thing though. So if you're like me, where you have a single exhaust from the factory and you get a dual exhaust setup, you are gonna need one component. I got this particular one from these guys right here. And what you need is, you need the hanger. You need the bracket, hanger, whatever you want to call it. You're gonna need it. Now what's cool about this one is it doesn't feel like it's steel, so it shouldn't rust. And the reason I know that is because they include this awesome magnet. And as you can see, their lanyard part sticks to this magnet fairly easily, but it does not stick at all. Like, it doesn't stick at all to this. So that leads me to believe this is hopefully something that I don't have to worry about rusting. Now we'll see. I'll put it on like this for now. I don't have any paint to cover this in black like I would want to. We'll have to see. And then of course it does come with a Honda genuine mount itself, rubber mount. So now that we've gotten all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get this car on those ramps and start working on it. Now, while we are waiting for the exhaust to cool off just a bit, because I just had it running, so it is a little warm, we're gonna go ahead and install the bracket. That should be fairly easy. That shouldn't be hard at all. We're just gonna get in the back here where the dual exhaust is supposed to be, with a second tip over here, and we're gonna go ahead and fit this up. For the two bolts that you're gonna be taking off here, you're gonna use a 12mm socket with ratchet, of course. You are gonna also wanna remove the plastic clips to get a little bit more room so you can put your arm in or hand in to get the bracket and the bolts back on. Now that that's complete, we're gonna go ahead and go ahead and take off the exhaust. I'm gonna go ahead and start at the catalytic converter with the bolts there first. Now, as you can see, as we get under here, the bolts are worse than I thought. The other bolts for the exhaust don't seem to be bad, but the ones by the catalytic converter are not good. So of course I blasted with some of that penetrating solvent and I let that sit for a little bit, and that did not work. Now the problem is that the rust is so bad that the socket will not fit over the bolt. So then I go ahead and grab a brass brush and try to help the rust out on that so I could put the socket over. That still did not work. I just did not have enough manpower to push the brush good enough to be able to actually help that rust be removed in any fashion. So I had to get a wire brush that goes on a drill and use that instead. That as well did not help. I used it for quite a bit and it just did not do anything to the rust. All it did, it seemed like, was actually just rounding it out instead of actually helping remove the rust so the socket could fit. Now, this is where I called it quits. I just couldn't get it. Now I do have a torch, but how close everything was to me, to my face, to the ground, I did not want to use a torch here. Even if I was able to get the bolts off, that could have been a severe hurt on me. And because of that, we're heading out to a shop. Now, don't ever be afraid to ask for help. Yeah, I'm not happy I couldn't get it off by myself, but that's what shops are for. I didn't have anybody where I can just use a lift, and I also didn't have the proper cutting tools to cut those bolts off. So, due to all that, we are going to utilize a shop. And that shop happens to be Auto Lab of Libertyville, Illinois.
My name is Sherman Riddick. I am the service manager at Auto Lab in Libertyville, specializing in foreign and domestic maintenance and repair. The shop has been open for 25 years. My father, Kevin Riddick, opened it 25 years ago. I came on about 7 years ago and have been working as the service manager and will eventually be taking it over as his successor. Oh man, there is no limits. If we could go back to Master P's No Limit Records, we would be the no limit of the auto industry. But seriously, we work on anything from oil changes all the way up to whole engine repairs and whole engine replacements, engine transmissions, exhaust, which we just did for Hottest. You know, we do brakes, belts, suspension, steering gear, all the maintenance flushes for fluids. We do it all.
All right, now that you've gotten a little taste on who Auto Lab is and who Sherman is, let's go ahead and finally get into getting this exhaust switched out. First things first, depending how you're gonna do this. Of course, I'm at a shop, so we're gonna go ahead and use the lift. Let's go ahead and get the car up on the lift. Here's just a little closer look on how rusted the bolts are. First, you're gonna go ahead and remove these floor braces that are underneath the car right in the way of the exhaust itself. Now, if your bolts are just as bad as mine, you're gonna do exactly what my new best friend Noel here is doing and using a lot of fire, a lot of heat to get these off. Once you do that, go ahead and take your socket, hammer it onto the bolt and remove the bolt with a ratchet. Now, you're not gonna wanna use a impact gun just yet, just so that way you don't snap that bolt off. Make sure to first remove the first bolt you heated up, then heat up the next bolt. Don't heat them all up, obviously, all at once. Once all the bolts are off, go ahead and use some kind of lubricating fluid, WD-40 or whatever you like, to help remove the exhaust from the rubber hanger. If you have the car in the lift, you can use a pry bar, as I stated my new best friend Noel is doing, or you can use a specific hanger exhaust tool. Since you're not going to be reusing the original bolts, you're going to use a lot of heat again to get these out. Once that is done, go ahead and clean up the surface. Once the surface is cleaned up, go ahead and get the pipe onto the rubber mount to help you hold it up. And then once, of course, that is done, go ahead and utilize the new gasket and bolts. Put the mid pipe to the cap. Once you have the Y pipe on, go ahead and put up the two mufflers on the hanger so that way they're being held up. And then, of course, go ahead and do not fully bolt it on, but just go ahead and put in the bolts to hold the left pipe with the right pipe together. Once that is done, go ahead and put up the next pipe that connects the Y pipe to the mid pipe. Now remember, once again, you're not going to want to tighten all the bolts down. You're just going to put them on there so the pipes are all together. Once everything's positioned properly, go ahead and then start tightening up all the bolts. And then once that is done, now let's go ahead and see how this thing sounds. right, now that we got all that out of the way, let's talk about the exhaust. First off, I understand I didn't fully do it myself. I get it. I wish I did, but even the mechanic said that after he did it, he said that would have been the most difficult thing to do on your own on jack stands at your home. It would have been different if I had maybe all the tools and a jack and then doing it on my own, but the fact that I was on my own and had to do it on jack stands would have been literally almost impossible. Now, as for the shop, not only am I throwing the shop in, they didn't pay me, they didn't do this for me for free, I paid them, so this is not a paid promotion. However, I do want to be frank. I do know the owner, or the guy you saw in the video, Sherman. He's a buddy of mine, so I can contest to the service you're going to be getting and the kind of person he is. So when I tell you, if you need help like I did, go to his shop, it's because I know who he is and how he'll treat you. They do all kinds of cars and all kinds of services, as he already mentioned. So if you're worried about what they might be able to do or what they might not be able to do, or if you're not certain if what he said they can do falls under what you need him to do, give him a call. Information, of course, is in the description below. Now for the exhaust, I mentioned earlier that it's 2.5 inch all the way around. That was one of the biggest reasons I purchased it. That's true, but also it's the price. So it is still 304 stainless steel, just like most exhausts are gonna be, but price of it was $485 shipped, so I couldn't go wrong. It was half of what most other places are. I will say this, the statement "you get what you pay for" might be a little true, mainly because I did notice that the right tip is a little bent downwards compared to the one to the left, and right there by the mid pipe looks like it is a little bent, so it's not letting everything sit properly. Now, I don't know if this is normal, but also one of the brace, not sure what you would call it, but I'm calling it a brace. The two that we had to remove to get the exhaust off, 1 out of 2 only fits on there. The first one all the way up front. The second one does not fit with the new exhaust. The exhaust sits just low enough to where you would have to force that up to actually be able to fit it in there. And if you did that, well, you'd feel that in the car and possibly hear it too. Now, overall, I still would recommend the exhaust. I love how it sounds. I was expecting good enough. I truly was. I was expecting good enough. My expectation for the exhaust wasn't that I was going to be extremely happy, but it was going to be good enough tone-wise. It's better than that. I am extremely, extremely happy with the tone. It's deep, it's not raspy, it's not high-pitched like a lot of Honda Civics are. It's exactly what I wanted. It's not crazy loud, but it's just loud enough to have a sound. As I mentioned in the previous video with the intake, these cars have 0 sound. So to add additional sound, but not make it overbearing, this is perfect. I 100% would definitely go with this exhaust. Now, if you do it and you end up finding yourself in the situation where I'm at, and you notice that maybe the tip is a little bent or the mid pipe might be a little bent and it's making it sit a little weird. Now, I don't know if that's normal or not, but it does look like that it's possible from the heat of the welding or maybe how it's cut that it was bent a little bit. I wouldn't say this was damaged in shipping or anything like that. I think this is just how that exhaust ended up happening to be. Now, because I relied on the shop to put it on, I didn't want to not be happy about it, and so I will contact the shop and I'll do an update video and letting you guys know, not the shop, the people that sold me the exhaust. I'll contact them and see what they say, and I'll let you guys know in an update video on how that went. But once again, I definitely recommend the exhaust. I originally, when I ordered it, was supposed to be on back order until June. I got it in beginning of May. That's a huge difference. So I was super excited about that. Overall, I like the quality. I like the sound and definitely like the price. I recommend it. If I was to rate it outside those minor bends that seem to be there, I'd give it about a 7.5, 8 out of 10. The sound gets it up there. And that's it for this one. If you guys enjoyed the video or if you like the exhaust tone or anything like that, let me know. If you didn't enjoy the video, hit the dislike button. Tell me why you didn't enjoy it. If you did enjoy it, make sure to subscribe for future videos. In the next video, I'm not sure. for these Honda mods. Maybe tint, we'll see. I'm not certain what we're going with yet, but it's possible that it's going to be tint. And that's it guys, once again, that's it for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.